Hey there, guys, it's Celine, and it's Tuesday, the 28th of September. I am sitting here holding my mother, Black Mother statuette that I made myself, that I carved out of a sort of a half-charred piece of yew wood a couple of years ago. I have already shown this one time on my channel. It was advice from Kelly Ann Maddox, actually, to lean into the arms of the mother, you know? And I felt like, okay, pause the video, go get a statue and sit with this in my hands like so. So I'll be probably sitting here like this for a tiny bit longer, because it does help somehow. I also got a second cup of coffee. I just had lunch. It's gorgeous weather. I really should be outside instead of in here doing this, you know. Then again, I have been busy making my candles. Yes, I have a few of these, not too many, because I was out of paraffin, and also made tea lights like so. They're not perfect, but they will do quite well for the coming, I don't know, month and a half, certainly. They burn rather well. I'm quite pleased to say I can make them to my own specifications, you know, with charcoal and graveyard dirt in them and so on and so forth. And some essential oils I mixed in there as well, and they smell really nice. Not overly strong, but I'm pleased with the work I've done. So maybe I should just show you my whole tray of my results of my work, because I spent nearly 2 hours, I think, on this lot. And there's two more bigger ones. This is actually like a little candle pot that's supposed to be hanging. The trick is to have the wicks actually sitting in the middle of that. It's a thing. It's enjoyable. Normally it's enjoyable. The reason I don't look extraordinarily happy at this time is that I've had I've had quite a shift in perspective yet again. So I still have to do quite a bit of processing, and I maybe want to do that right here, at least some of it, you know, with you guys, and with my mother statuette, and with the sun coming into the house. It will be October soon. I mean, I've been working really hard over the past months, what with my Tumo practice and vibrational changes and things becoming possible that were never possible before because of that. So grateful, yes, and really impressed with what I am getting, yes, all those things, absolutely. I suppose there was one real missing element in all this, and it is the element of realizing that there are other people in the same situation as me, or in a very similar situation, you know? Maybe not, well, everybody's situation is unique. Well, that's very obvious. I mean, I would say that is completely natural. Nobody really looks at things in manners that are identical, or the priorities are always different, and the things that one person feels really bad about and, you know, goes on feeling horrible about for years on end mean next to nothing to the next person. So that's normal, that's natural. There's still such a thing as realizing that there are circumstances that you actually share, where you grew up in a situation that kept you isolated from other people, and certainly from people in similar kinds of traumatized background. Okay, so a lot of the trauma doesn't get talked about, still doesn't, you know. which is one reason why I keep making my videos and just keep plowing ahead with all this hard stuff. It turns out I found an internet article yesterday. Yesterday at the end of the afternoon, I went back to my computer, and instead of doing more Kabbalah cards or searches for whatever magical types of tools that I play with, that I find interesting and so on and so forth, I was really motivated by that time to go and search some type of common ground where somebody else would be able to describe or say, I was just assuming from, their own personal viewpoint on some forum or other. I didn't know, what it was like to grow up with parents who are borderline or depressed or narcissistic, or who have experienced the concentration camps as a kid, or who kids from, I have a set of issues. A lot of my issues nowadays are changing. The perspective is changing the whole time, but I do have to invent new ways of looking at myself, new ways of, I suppose, being confident, really, that it will all be okay, that I don't have to protect myself in the ways that I used to, things that I learned back in the day, in the situation I was in back then, So I'm a child of divorced parents. It's just one element in my story. Both my parents had war trauma in completely different styles and forms. One of them had a Jewish background with a lot of trauma and loss and pain, and sometimes ways of dealing with things that I don't understand, also because I don't know enough about them. On my mother's side, it was a different story. It had to do with Japanese concentration camps in Indonesia. There was more going on. It wasn't just the war, ever. I had to pause for a second because there was a chopper that was passing close by here, and that would drown us out, wouldn't it? There was more. In the article that I finally printed out for myself and read, there were a couple of statements that just completely shocked me as to how common the type of issues I had growing up, that I still feel very angry and resentful about, basically, and sad, and all the level of pain that there was on all sides, not just mine, that it was actually really common in families that have these traits, right? That have these types of background. So I am trying, as I sit here, to deal with the pileup where I am familiar with one really weird element in my past, which is that my parents were born really close together. So there was only 1.5 day really between them, maybe 2 days at the most. And so they have, they used to have the same type of birth chart, My mother passed away in 95. My dad, as far as I know, is still alive. But I'm not in contact with him anymore. So I've had to sort of live with the fact that they divorced, that they didn't get along, even though they had very similar astrology, Astrology is really something I always turn to understand how somebody functions, how somebody, what somebody's preferences are, how they go about things, how things work for them. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, all that. And there's a lot more that I could be saying, and some I've said also about my parents' charts. But the thing is that I never made sense of any of it, And this article that I ended up finding last night has given me such a huge sense of, okay, so this is really very common. So this isn't extraordinary at all, that I actually feel like I've been lied to my whole life. Where I used to think, because both my parents had sort of had that kind of an idea about themselves somehow, that they were really very special people. And that is what is very common in those types of families. So people who are descendants of some type of war trauma situation. They isolate themselves. They're scared. It's not hard to understand at all. My complications, I've got a couple of complications on top of the war trauma inheritance here. The astrological situation is just one of them. The other thing is that my mother was an invalid, really, which is also, according to this article, quite common. Physical ailment instead of psychological weakness or, hard difficulties. The other thing is that, which is probably slightly less common, is that my mother and I moved house a great many times, as I was growing up. So I'm trying to screw my head around the idea that I was really supposed to not have contact with anybody. I try to really feel very sorry for myself. Then again, I am very aware, or in a very uncomfortable way, really, excruciatingly aware, that in the isolation, and certainly in the past couple of years, some of which I've shared with you guys on this channel here, I have actually managed to learn things, to learn about things, to learn to do independent research, certainly. Also to be creative, to go my own way, to do my own things in the way I like, to go mushroom foraging, to do witchcrafty things in my very special own way, without ever, I don't give two hoots about whether people approve or not at my age, because I'm not 16 years old anymore. Nobody's telling me, they used to tell me enough times, that what I did was wrong, or that I shouldn't have done it, or that I should have, I don't know, whatever, was happening at the time. So I'm kind of losing my own thread here, as usual. I realized that I have had a lot of freedom. I married the right person. I was super lucky in that. I married a person who could actually live with the fact that I just go my own way and do my own things. And we support each other the whole time. We're really there for each other. And that has been life-saving for me. So in that context, I can do the things, with somebody who supports me, somebody for whom I actually do what I can to help him whenever he needs me. I'm there, that kind of thing. That's the deal. And in a way, being in this extreme type of a situation where where it turns out that I was never really connected to anybody, at least I did not look to other people to give me advice, ever. I didn't go to people in the hope or expectation or need that they would actually be able to help me, that there would actually be some kind of a safety net, that they would actually be able to make a difference in my situation. It was impossible to help me. I felt that very strongly because I didn't give people enough access to me anyway, or to my life, or to my thoughts. Or I wasn't, back when I was an adolescent, I wasn't even aware of any of this stuff. So anytime somebody said something, a teacher or somebody at school said something to try to actually help me, it felt like being attacked. It felt like okay, so whatever it is I'm doing wrong because you obviously believe what I am doing is wrong, because everything became a criticism always, which was what I had learned back in the day. So I still don't really deal with criticism very well. It's one of the remnants. It's not something that just goes away really ever, I think. I'm trying to learn now, very slowly, that being vulnerable and being aware of your own vulnerability and your sensitivity doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're unsafe. You can be really unsafe in a very unsafe type of a situation without being aware of it. Just, la la la, dancing along, and boom, something happens because there was no safety. Feeling vulnerable isn't unsafe. If you get it, I swear, it's some of this stuff. So my article, it's in Dutch, so I can't really help you get at this in any way, I think, unless I manage to later on at some point today find a place where this is translated. I think I did see an English translation of the book where that this is from, but it may have been a different book by the same author. I was so impressed with, this is 10 pages of really tiny letters, just the internet screen, like so. She makes so much sense, it's freaking me out still, it really is. And I feel so shaky and so I'm so shocked that a lot of what I've gone through is actually completely normal. A lot of what my parents have gone through is completely normal. It was normal. And how it affects people, a lot of it really through the generations, which is what the most important thing that she states all the time also. How it affects people depends on how much things are talked about. So that's why I decided to come out and do my little awkward little ramble about this subject here today anyway. Because I'd rather talk about it awkwardly and, clumsily and without any real sense of, I got this under control. I have not got this under control. Maybe my Tumo has it under control. I think so. And I suppose as long as you're angry about things, and I am a bit angry still. I'm a bit angry because I feel like I didn't have to believe in the stupid superiority kind of a deal that I grew up with, that this being different, that everybody, the distance between people. I didn't have to believe that, and I suppose I believed in it because it appealed to me. Because why not? Being special, it sounds cool. Everybody wants to be special, but it's no good being isolated and so it's it's tough, really, this whole thing. And after the past couple of weeks where I've already done quite a bit of messing around and shoving ideas around in my brain from one side to the other, about my dad, about a whole kind of an ancestor business that I had, the adoption of this name in this Holocaust Memorial is just a week ago by now, just 9 days ago. And it's still the only connection that I will be having with that side of my family, other than a couple of pots of pigments that I use for my things. Some of the pigments I actually do still use, that I, there's things. But because I moved house so many times, and because of all the, I have very little, very few bits left over that were there my whole life. So there's a lot of fragmentation, and that makes me angry. The looking back and just feeling all this, it's like ice flows, you know, bits of ice in a jumble that are broken up in a river or somewhere. It's just all, yeah, squeezing and making noises in my brain. So maybe I won't be uploading that much in the very foreseeable future. Also because at the state that I'm in, I actually don't draw cards. I don't really find the courage to journal at this point. You know, it'll just have to do. This helps. Actually just sitting here and holding my statue, funnily enough, or funny, yes, I made her for this kind of a, to be this presence in my room, she sits over there on my counter, right at the side there. If I go like this, you can see that there's this brick wall over going up, and with a little wooden, you know, a beam sitting next to it, and over there is where she sits all the time. It's like we know what we're doing anyway, whether we know it or not. Sometimes. I feel that way, certainly. I've been led, I've been helped a lot. And I'm going to finish my coffee. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. And who knows, maybe tomorrow everything is different again. Because these times. Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.